Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 6.
The coronavirus pandemic has exposed how scarce some needed medical supplies are. Experts say one reason for that is a law more than a dozen states have in place, including Minnesota, which is intended to reduce healthcare care costs. Some say it's putting lives in danger. Valley News Team's Joshua Peguero investigates the law and its impacts on combating COVID-19.
Governors across the United States are pleading with the Trump administration for help in the fight against COVID-19. But about 35 of these states have laws in place impacting their ability to effectively respond. Minnesota is one of them. It has a statute that prevents hospitals from expanding or allowing new ones to be built, limiting the number of hospital beds. Professor Thomas Stroutman of George Mason University says these laws are anti-competitive.
The certificate of need laws definitely have prevented the buildup of the number of hospital beds we have, and they are contributing to a shortage of ICU beds.
Stroutman says these certificate of need laws hurt rural hospitals the most.
The statute in Minnesota requires first an application, and then the regulators decide not only whether there is need, but also whether the opening of a new hospital or adding beds hurts the competitor.
House Representative Paul Marquardt says when the state originally passed it decades ago, the idea was to lower health costs.
Bottom line is, when you have a moratorium like this in place, does it work for a pandemic? Well, no, absolutely not. It doesn't.
According to the Pacific Legal Foundation, 18 states suspended their certificate of need laws during the pandemic. Minnesota was not one. Marquardt says the state is getting around it by scouting for 5 potential sites for hospital beds.
The Director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management and the governor is looking at additional beds as the peak in the COVID-19 hits.
Marquardt says the state should take a hard look at this law after the pandemic is over.
I think this is going to be a situation where people are going to take a look at this to see, where is some middle ground.
On your screen are the number of intensive care unit beds in the valley compared to population size. ICU beds have ventilators, which are used to breathe oxygen in and out of a patient's lungs. Most rural counties in North Dakota and Minnesota don't have ICU beds. With facilities like Sanford Hospital right behind me, Cass County has the largest amount of ICU beds in the area, according to Kaiser Health News. Essentia Chief Medical Officer Dr. Richard Vetter says government and hospital leaders are partnering to prepare for a surge.
Both of our health systems have been upgrading and expanding and making sure that we have more ICU bed capacity than we would at our base level.
Although North Dakota does not have a law restricting hospital beds, Vetter says Minnesota's law is not an issue.
I think it's reasonable to make sure that we don't have overcapacity, given the high cost of medical care. But I think when you're dealing with a crisis or an emergency, having an easy way to remove those restrictions and add capacity certainly makes a lot of sense.
But Stroutman says Minnesota's statute and others around the country like it benefit large hospitals. In Fargo, Joshua Peguero, Valley News Live.
North Dakota passed a similar law in the 1970s restricting the number of hospital beds, but it was phased out in the mid-1990s. 2 more people have died in North Dakota due to coronavirus. That brings the total now to 6. One of the 2 is from Stark County, was in his 60s and had underlying health issues. There are no details as of yet on the other death. There are a total of 269 positive cases currently, including 18 more from yesterday. 34 people remain hospitalized and 101 have recovered. With stress levels up for everyone, an emotional Governor Doug Burgum today during his daily briefing talked about the support he has been receiving from First Lady Catherine Burgum.
She's been an amazing partner. And people ask me about, the burden of leadership, but this is a team sport. We all go through the challenges in life when you've got somebody that is really there to support you. And I have to say, the North Dakota needs to know that the First Lady's been supporting me.
residents to reach out to people who may be wrestling with addiction issues. Catherine Burgum said even with social distancing, there doesn't need to be social disconnection. Another 88 people tested positive for COVID-19 in Minnesota, bringing that state's total to 1,242. There are also reported 11 new deaths due to the illness, bringing the total number to 50. There are currently 145 patients in the hospital with 63 in the ICU. 675 patients no longer need to be isolated. Wilkin County now has reported its first death from the virus. One of the new cases of COVID-19 in Minnesota is linked to a manufacturing plant employee in Perham. Shears Food says that they have taken steps to identify and notify individuals who work closely with the employee. The facility remains open and has conducted a deep cleaning of the contested areas and equipment based on CDC guidelines. Just as Hutch said it would, temps dropped today along with a little bit of snow. Sure would like to see all of that in our rear view mirror soon. Let's get the very latest from our First Alert chief meteorologist and tonight's weather. Hutch?
Mike, thanks so much. And if you missed it this morning in the pre-dawn hours, we had, there they come, those low clouds, a shot of snow making for some briefly slippery roads and byways across the area. A report from a Facebook friend, thanks for the report, 2 inches on a quick hitting snow shower that danced through the Bemidji area this morning. So that's what we dealt with throughout the day, but we do see peaks of sun. We still have breezy conditions, and that's going to continue tonight as well. But the winds eventually taper off after we head to bed. 20s again for a chilly night. But Mike, we have much better news for Friday as warmer air is going to punch its way into the valley. Mid-20s by bedtime tonight in Grand Forks. Your hour-by-hour details in the forecast here in a few moments.
All right, thanks so much. The body of a missing Bemidji, Minnesota man has been found. 35-year-old Matthew Asa has last seen at his home on Christmas Eve. His body was found in a swampy area near Bemidji. Now, there's no indication of foul play, and investigators say there is no threat to the public. Valley City police say lock your doors and windows. There's been an increase of property thefts. Police also say to make sure your sheds, outbuildings, and unattached garages are also locked at all times. If you do have missing property or see anything suspicious, you're asked to call them. The phone number's on your screen, 701-845-3110. The CDC has loosened the rules to allow certain employees who have been exposed to the coronavirus to return to work. The new guidelines say people can only go back to work if they're experiencing no symptoms. They should also take their temperature before shifts, practice social distancing, and wear face masks. This would only apply to essential employees, such as those working in the healthcare area and food supply industries. Previously, workers were told to stay at home for 14 days if they were exposed to someone who tested positive for the virus. Police in Grand Forks want you to know about a scam that has been showing up. They say if you receive a suspicious email, text message, or even a phone call regarding a stimulus check, do not share your personal information. The federal government will not ask you to pay money up front to receive a stimulus check. They will also never call you to ask for your social security number, bank account, or credit card numbers. Less than 24 hours after we started asking, the Minnesota Department of Health announced an upcoming presentation to explain the data behind COVID-19 tracking models. This presentation will be tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Look for details on this story right here on Valley News Live. Police in Fargo came to the rescue this morning after a deer got stuck in a heavy metal fence at Riverside Cemetery. They had to use a car jack to pry the fence bars apart, but they did so, and the deer was able to get away unharmed. Some Minnesotans are staying busy at designing trick shots. We'll show you what they look like later on Valley News Live at 6.
And a cold pool of air slowly shifting to the east over the Great Lakes region means we'll warm up. It doesn't last too long, but we will warm up. Details are coming up right after this.